The Fresno State Tax being constructed to get back on the ballot in 2024, and we heard from one of the authors of Measure E, Tim Orman, showing extreme confidence the voters will buy in. Is our panel buying in? Bill McHugh and Alex Tavlian joining me once again. All right, guys, so we've seen the breakdown of the numbers now, something we didn't see the last time, and Tim Orman admitted that was probably the biggest hiccup in their first round. But more than $1 billion in revenue over a 25-year tax now will be used. That's what this new plan is. Valley Children's Stadium receiving $160 million of it to upgrade it, to renovate it. Are you buying in?
I certainly think that the way this is constituted today versus a year ago is much more impressive. And there's a couple of reasons why. My colleague Daniel Gligich at The Sun was in the room as they began kind of developing and trying to get buy-in from the community, which is a very impressive start for Richard Spencer, who was the backer of the original measure. But to be honest with you, the biggest thing is seeing the buy-in from the university itself, and that they are actually recommending biggest needs for the university moving forward that cannot be facilitated by fees, by increases in tuition, or that's not being accommodated by the CSU Board of Trustees. So I think the overarching expenditure plan is a solid start in the right direction for this measure.
Your thoughts on that, but I'm going to add a little caveat because I know how much you like sports. Is this measure passing, or at least launching this new tax measure, helping Fresno State secure a spot in the Big 12?
Well, I think that decision will be made before this goes on the ballot. Okay. So I don't see that as helping. I don't believe this will pass. It has several problems. First of all, it's a Republican-oriented venture, and Republicans are against tax increases. So it's very unlikely to get any Republican support on the Democratic side. A lot of Democrats are going to look at it and say, there's not enough equity in this. Why should regular Joes be funding these things that the state should be funding? And in regard to expanding some of these facilities out there, well, that should be the job of people like the Resnicks and other well-heeled donors. It shouldn't be the job of people who are fighting to put food on the table. And then finally, nobody knows how these contracts are going to be awarded. A lot of people think, hey, this is just something that's going to enrich Richard Spencer.
I want to move to Gavin's Law now. Obviously, the passionate, emotional plea, once again, Rita Gladding. Why do you guys think it hasn't crossed the finish line, for one, and will it this time?
You know, I think a lot of it is just partisan politics. You know, Sacramento has been a den of killing common sense, criminal justice reforms that actually help victims. We've seen it just this year in bills that are presented by Republicans to reclassify rape as a violent offense in order to ensure it's a felony. And it had been killed in committee just because the author is a Republican. So I think a lot of it is partisan politics rather than the merits of the actual bill, which is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think that Assemblymember Patterson, if he were able to bring on 5 or 6 Democratic co-sponsors, to have a much better chance. The last point I want to make, though, is this law does need fixing. As it stands, it provides an incentive for DUI drivers who are involved in accidents to flee the scene. It reduces their exposure to criminal sentencing.
I want to get to Cesar Chavez Boulevard. This has certainly been an argument. We saw it in Fresno City Council on Thursday. A lot of people for it, a lot of people against it. Council couldn't even hear from everybody because everybody was not happy about it, and also happy about it, right? So did the council get this right by renaming a 10-mile stretch from Peach to First Street, Cesar Chavez Boulevard, over Kings Canyon Road?
Well, I mean, clearly they had the votes to approve it, and they engage in a community process to solicit input about whether or not to move forward on it. And based on what the lead author, Councilman Luis Chavez, not related to Cesar Chavez, he said, look, we went through this process. It took a year, set on the agenda 3 or 4 times, and, you know, we found the comments we needed. I think the biggest bailiwick here is related to one portion of the road that engendered a lot of the vitriol, which is California Avenue, which is where the UFW, in theory, was actually founded at the Edison Social Hall a long time ago. So,
your thoughts on this, obviously, and then there's the county portion too, which they're not seemingly going to change it.
Well, my thoughts are pretty succinct. The opponents to this are engaged in petty politics. clearly naming something for Cesar Chavez is appropriate in the city of Fresno, especially considering the march and the foundings in this area and how many farm workers live in this area. So it should be done. In regard to the county, this Board of Supervisors won't go along, but you know what? A future version very well could and should.
All right. Alex Tavlian, Bill McEwen, thank you both for being here.